So welcome to video 3, development of grid system. Today we have hands-on session, how to develop a grid system for 2D problems based on our previous discussions. So problem number 1, the fundamental concept of developing a grid system is initially the software will going to ask how many number of lines, grid lines particularly required along X direction. So here in this problem, as we discussed in our previous class, the number of grid lines required along each global axis x, y, and z depends upon the number of support conditions. So if you see this number of grid lines, this 2D problem, in 2D problem we are having the longer direction along only on x global axis. That's why we require the grid lines only along x direction. In y direction and z direction, we don't have any physical model. So the number of grid lines along x direction is 2. If you input 2 in the software will going to develop two grids along x direction. That is 1 and 2. So that is the logic. We will see in the software. Please go through the previous videos. The first step is to change the unit to standard unit as per our Indian standard codes. That is kilonewton, meter, and centigrade. Next one, you go to file, new model. As we discussed in our previous classes, we can able to initiate the model in two ways. One is initialize model from default units. So these are the default units. And second one is initialize model from an existing file. This we are going to see in the next coming videos. Initially, you click on this and you give grid only option. So as I told, the software will going to ask how many number of grid lines required along each direction, x, y, z. You give 2. Here, as I told, it is 1, z is 1. So what is the meaning of this 1? Let us see. And next one is, it will going to ask the spacing. Enter a value for the distance between grid lines in x direction using the current units. Here you can assume the default grid spacing as 5. Here we are not using any physical model along y and z direction, but software doesn't accept 0. So you give the default units as 1 and 1. And the first grid line location, that is the origin, is located at 0, 0, 0. This is the initial coordinates of the your global axis. We press OK. As you can be able to see this. So this is the XY plane. We always identify the global axis. This is the XY plane. So XY is nothing but which plane? XY is plan. And this is the 3D. So if you see the 3D, this is X direction. So the number of grid lines required along X direction we are given as 2. Okay. So if you go for this plan, you just go view, set 2D view, and this is XY plane. You go for XZ plane. This is the elevation XZ plane. You go to see A, B. So this is your working plane. For all 2D problems, you make sure that you are in XZ plane. Now we can able to identify the software has developed two grids. There is grid A and grid B along X direction. But if you see in plan, set 2D, and this is XY is plan. And if you see in plan, there is only one grid along X direction. This is grid number 1. So I suggest you to close this 3D. This is not required for 2D problem for time being as a beginner. and you always keep the view set 2D view, and you make sure that your working plane is exact plane. So this is the methodology to develop the grid system. So once you develop the grid system, don't forget to save your model immediately. So you can save your model. You save as problem, save, close. Problem number 2. Here again the number of grid lines required along x direction is 2 because 2 supports are there and the total span is 5 meters. So be careful that even though your beam is divided into two spans, there is no intermediate support. If there is no intermediate support, we did not to provide 3 grid lines. It is optional. You can able to provide 2 grid lines or 3 grid lines, but I suggest you to provide the number of grid lines based on your number of main supports. So here again the total span of the beam is 10 meters. Let us see how to model this one. So again I will go, so file, new model, grid only. Number of grid lines required along x direction 2, y direction is 1, default it is 1. So no physical object are present in y direction and z direction. Z is 1 because we are at 0 level, and here the spacing is 10 meter. Total span of the beam is 10 meter and this is 1, and default it is 1. Software doesn't accept the 0. Again you close this window and you go to view, set 2D view and exit plane, press OK. So you can able to see this. You just move the mouse and you can able to see the global coordinate system at the bottom of your status bar. That is x 10, y 0.0, z 0. It is global. You just save. So you just save as problem number 2. So for this problem, the number of grid lines along x direction is the total number of supports. But this is a overhang. So here we are having two options. One option is you can give 2 or you can give 3, because this is we are having an overhang of 4 meters and the distance between the two supports is 6 meters. So let us see how to tackle this problem. So you go file, new model, grid only option. Number of grid lines I will give 3, x direction 1, default, z direction 1. The grid spacing, here we are having two spans. So one span is 6 meter and another span is 4 meter. Here you should be very careful. Always enter the value between any two grid system. I will just enter 6. This is 1, default, this is 1. Press OK. So close this window, you go to view, set 2D view, and you go to exit plane, and you keep here, and don't forget to save your model. So problem 3. So this is the grid system. But as you see our previous problem, the distance between A and B is 6 meter and B and C, let us say it is 4 meter. But if you see this problem, the distance between A and B is 6 meter and B and C is also 6 meter. Because you are given 6 in the initial development of grid system, where it is going to take a default uniform spacing. If you give 6, it will going to take the uniform spacing between all the grids. So I need to change this. You go for, just right click on the screen, you go for edit grid data, you see the modify or show system, and two options are there. You can able to edit. One is ordinates and next one is spacing. You go for spacing Here the spacing between A and B is 6, but B and C is you change to 4. This is 0, 0. Press OK. So again you go for view, set 2D view, exit plane. See? So now you can able to see the total uh, length of your problem, total span of your problem is totally is 10 meter. This is 6 meter and this is 4 meter. So this is how you should be able to modify the grid system, because in the initial stages the software will going to take as uniform grid spacing. After that user has to edit the grid spacing as per the requirement. So in the next class we are going to continue this discussion of development of grid system. Thank you.